Welcome to Hannity. It was a showdown in Las Vegas with the 2016 Republican presidential candidate squaring off earlier tonight in what is now their fifth debate. And after a strong showing in the polls, Senator Ted Cruz was under a lot of pressure to have a strong performance. He did not disappoint. Take a look.
You would carpet bomb where ISIS is, not a city, but the location of the troops. You use air power directed, and you have embedded special forces to direct the air power. But the object isn't to level a city. The object is to kill the ISIS terrorists, to make it. Listen, ISIS is gaining strength because the perception is that they're winning, and President Obama fuels that perception. That will change when militants across the globe see that when you join ISIS, that you are giving up your life, you are signing your death warrant.
All right, here with reaction is 2016 GOP presidential candidate Senator Ted Cruz. I thought that was a big moment in the debate for you, because the way the media tried to portray it was, oh, you're going to carpet bomb and see if the sand can glow in the dark. Obviously, that was not what you meant. You were making a point that this is a war and you've got to win the war. What was your reaction to the question?
Well, look, I think you're exactly right. I mean, the media pretends that the only way to fight this war is the way Barack Obama is doing it, which is utterly ineffectual. I mean, as I laid out in the debate, if you look at the first Persian Gulf War, we launched roughly 1,100 air attacks a day. That's saturation carpet bombing. It's overwhelming air power, and it's devastating. In contrast, the Obama administration is launching between 15 and 30 air attacks a day, and it is completely ineffectual. ISIS is laughing at us. And the problem is we don't have a commander-in-chief who had set the objective to utterly and completely destroy ISIS. As commander-in-chief, that's exactly what I would do, Sean.
You know, I was very interested also in your answer about, for example, deposing dictators. And who are the rebels we often end up supporting? They end up being oftentimes far worse than the people that we depose. Explain how, I mean, we're talking about a razor's edge. You're threading a needle in some of these cases. Difficult decision or easy decision for you?
Oh, sure. These decisions are always difficult. But, you know, you look at how Ronald Reagan approached the Cold War. He used as the central unifying approach of his foreign policy defeating Soviet communism. And that meant sometimes that he cooperated with dictators who were unsavory characters, but they were helpful in stopping and defeating Soviet communism. The problem with our foreign policy, with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and unfortunately with too many Washington Republicans, is they take their eye off the ball. They stop focusing on the need to defeat radical Islamic terrorism, whether it's ISIS, whether it's Al-Qaeda, whether it's Boko Haram, whether it's al-Nusra, across the board. And so what we keep ending up doing is toppling governments in the Middle East and enabling the radical Islamic terrorists to take over. Libya, Gaddafi was a bad man. He had been active in terrorism decades before, but he had become a partner with the U.S. government in targeting radical Islamic terrorists, in capturing them, in fighting them. And what Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did, with the support of a lot of Washington Republicans, is toppled him after he's helping us fight radical Islamic terrorism, and it gave Libya over to the terrorists. That's worse from America's perspective. We did something very similar in Egypt. And in Syria, what is maddening, Sean, is these same folks, they don't seem to learn from the same mistakes. Assad is a bad man, but if we topple Assad and hand Syria over to ISIS, that's even worse from a U.S. national security perspective.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. People forget in World War II that we aligned ourselves with Joseph Stalin and the Russians, an enemy, and sometimes it gets very complicated. It was funny, but you have now established yourself as the second-place candidate in this race of 14 candidates. You have been climbing steadily in the polls. As a matter of fact, if you look, a number of polls now have you leading in the first caucus state of Iowa. Going into this debate, there had been a little back and forth between you and Donald Trump. People were expecting a little battle between the two of you. That did not unfold, but a serious and significant debate on both metadata and immigration between you and Marco Rubio. I wanted you to explain from your perspective how that went down.
Well, look, I think there are some significant policy differences. So, for example, on immigration, we saw a sharp difference between Senator Rubio's support of Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer's amnesty program And in particular, this is one of the first times we really discussed how the Rubio-Schumer amnesty plan would have endangered our national security, because it would have given Barack Obama blanket powers to admit new refugees, including Syrian refugees, without mandating any background checks at all. And that really would endanger our national security. I think that difference was shown clearly in the debate. And I'll tell you, Sean, I think the most important difference of the entire debate was, I think the American people are looking for someone who is clear-eyed, who has judgment, who has strength, who they can trust to keep this country safe, to be commander-in-chief, to go after the terrorists, to defeat ISIS, and not to take their eye off the ball of what is needed to protect the homeland and ensure that this nation remains safe.
You know, Senator, we've learned a lot about ISIS in the last couple of weeks. We learned, for example, that they now have the ability to print their own visas and passports. We have learned that they have a plan, as confirmed by Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mike McCall, to infiltrate the refugee population. And we also learned that this administration literally wanted to protect the privacy of people coming into this country so they wouldn't even look at social media. You can't make this up. We didn't bomb the oil wells, the lifeblood of the financial support of ISIS, because they didn't want environmental damage. This, it seems to me, this is so reckless to me, that there's a lack of understanding that this is a war, and they've declared war against us, and they're trying to kill us. Why doesn't this president get it?
Sean, you're exactly right. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the entire Democratic Party, they are completely out of touch. I mean, they, as a matter of policy, refuse even to say the words radical Islamic terrorism. You know, following San Bernardino, the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, said what she was most worried about was rhetoric against anti-Muslim rhetoric against radical Islamic terrorism. How about having the Attorney General most worried about protecting the safety and security of our families here at home? And it's this political correctness that causes the administration not to stop these attacks. We should have been able to stop the Boston bombing. We should have been able to stop Fort Hood. But the administration is so politically correct, they don't act to stop it. That will end if I'm elected president. Our focus will be single-mindedly on defeating radical Islamic terrorism and on keeping this nation safe.
You know, and you made points that the Sarnoff brother, the older brother, Nidal Hassan, now the San Bernardino terrorist, the woman with the Pakistani passport, we had evidence. It seems to me that people should have blood on their hands here, but we only have about 30 seconds.
You're exactly right. Take Nidal Hassan. We knew he was communicating with a radical Islamic cleric, asking about waging jihad against fellow soldiers. The Obama administration did nothing, and 14 innocent people were murdered at Fort Hood. We should have prevented it, and political correctness costs lives. That will end if I'm elected.
All right, Senator, thank you for being with us. Congratulations on your new poll numbers.